and tomorrow. That's traffic and weather on the early game. Nine o'clock on your Tuesday morning. Welcome in. It is the Extra Point. Tyler Head and Jack Beltry along with you here on the game. Hopefully everybody had a nice extended holiday weekend and got to take in a lot of great sports action, which we will certainly get to over the course of the next hour. But more importantly than anything else, as we bring in Jack on the Gamecock Larry Love Chevrolet phone lines, hopefully, Jack, you're somewhere warm. Because, boy, is it cold outside.
Yeah, that's rumor on the street, isn't it? I have not been outside yet today, but I'll probably go outside in a little bit after we're done talking here today, Tyler. But let's see. In Columbia right now, it's supposed to be 25 degrees. Are we thinking snow today? Are we thinking snow? What's your prediction?
So if my Apple weather app is correct, we should have some later on today. I saw the little snowflake icon. My goal is to be inside by that point in time and not leave. So hopefully I don't have to be affected by that at all. I have the heat going at my apartment, and hopefully it'll all be melted by the time I drive in tomorrow.
Yeah, that would be nice for sure. But hey, at least seeing a little bit of snow wouldn't hurt at all. So we'll see what happens.
No, in fact, some snow might actually brighten some people's moods, given some of the things that we had to see this past weekend when it came to Gamecock sports, which we'll certainly get to in a moment. But man, what a fun and packed weekend of a great action we had across both basketball and football.
Oh yeah, what a fantastic weekend! And honestly, man, for this being like one of the last times we're gonna have, I mean, college football season's over now, but having like a full weekend of football like this was really good. And there was also some really good basketball mixed in other games, probably not South Carolina, but look, this was a great weekend in general for football, and it's what we live for.
It's one of those things that, like, as it's happening, you're almost panicking by trying to enjoy it too much because, like, man, this is the last weekend we're going to have football Saturday, Sunday, and Monday as well with the national championship game until really September. We're going to go 200 some odd days before meaningful football happens again once we get past the Super Bowl here in a couple weeks. But even then, it's like you're sitting here on January 21st saying, okay, there's 3 meaningful football games left until the end of summer.
Yeah, and luckily we'll get 2 next weekend, and then you get the Pro Bowl games, which doesn't even mean anything at that point in 2 weeks since they don't even play a game anymore. And then the Super Bowl. That's really it, to be honest. And like, no one's going to be watching it. We don't watch the XFL and all that stuff, honestly. Like, not paying close attention to it, at least. If it's on, you put it on. But I mean, that's the thing, man. It's like the real football that everyone loves and enjoys. But we're not getting that again until August with college football. So it's going to be a little bit of time to pass, but there'll be other things going on. Spring football's right around the corner, honestly.
We'll get to all the great football action over the weekend in just a moment, but first, we got to kick things off with our 9 a.m. Sandstorm Pick Me Up. It is time for your 9 a.m. Sandstorm Pick Me Up, brought to you by South Carolina's largest injury law firm, George Sink Injury Lawyers. If you've been hurt in the car or at work, call George Sink now at 803-ALL-9s. We'll get to the football stuff, but first, got to unpack what happened with the Gamecocks over the weekend. And, well, what we saw on Saturday was not fun. Men's basketball falling 82-62 to a previously winless in the SEC Oklahoma team out there in Norman for yet another just deflating loss. Jack, we've been doing this now for 3 weeks in conference play. I'm running out of words to describe the feeling after these losses, unfortunately.
Yeah, I'm not sure what to really think at this point, man. It's tough. It's tough to watch, honestly, because you think like this team is going to be coming into the season like, okay, like they're going to be good again. They're going to get back to the tournament potentially, at least be in the running for it. But man, the drop off has just been significant, and I want to keep thinking that there's obviously a chance to get this thing right. But look, you're playing a really good Florida team on Wednesday, and then you play Mississippi State on Saturday. Mind you, the same Mississippi State team that you lost to by 35 points to open this whole losing streak that you're on right now. So times are tough for South Carolina. I thought they played better on Saturday for a good portion of the game, but the final 12 minutes, man, that we'll get into here, that's real. It's basically the fourth quarter of a game that you really did not show up for.
Yeah, and look, this was a game that was very nip and tuck a lot of the way. And it was a 34-30 game at halftime with Oklahoma in the league. But these two teams were kind of staying step for step with each other for a large part of it, including South Carolina even taking a lead just before the halfway point in the second half. But alluding to those final 12 minutes, from the 12-minute mark to the end of the game, South Carolina was outscored 35-15 over that stretch. All these losses suck. There's no way about it. But I think this one, to me, was glaringly the worst because it looked like the team just kind of fell apart and gave up in the last 10 to 12 minutes.
Yeah, this was a 47-47 game in the final 12 minutes. And that's probably the most disappointing part of your South Carolina is that you had this game tied up. The lead was continuing to go back and forth. Carolina took the lead, then Oklahoma took the lead. And then once South Carolina was able to tie it again, that was the last time they even sniffed this game being close because Oklahoma quickly went on a 7-0 run. And then after that, it's, with 3 minutes left to go, it's 74-57. You're wondering what happened. And then by the end, it's a 20-point loss. And Oklahoma goes on a 35-15 run to win this game. And look, that's not the only – it was pretty much what decided this game in general. But, South Carolina had their chances. You can't be – you turn the ball over 16 times. And you turn that's the problem. You continue to turn the ball over, and Oklahoma gets 19 points off those turnovers. We saw how important the points off turnovers were in the Vanderbilt game when Vandy had 22 of them. Well, this time around, South Carolina forced 12 Oklahoma turnovers and only had 3 points off those miscues. That's the difference in the game right there. I know they lost by 20, but deep down, when you're still in the fight and you had your chances to kind of do something with it, you didn't. That's part of the problem here.
And 16 turnovers is a lot better than 25. That's not saying a whole lot, but at least it wasn't as egregious as the last game, against Vanderbilt. But it just kind of goes back to something we've been talking about a lot. This offense just doesn't have a rhythm or a flow to it. Now, to be fair, you are playing without Jamari Thomas. You are without Miles Studi again for God knows how long because of the blood clot situation. And on Saturday, and this is all their own doing, Colin Murray-Boyles and Nick Pringle were in foul trouble a lot. So CMB was only on the court for 22 minutes. Nick Pringle was only on the court for 18 minutes. And Coach Pierce alluded to it after the game. You were effectively playing down 4 starters for a large majority of this game. Again, credit, given the fact that you had it tied at 47 or going back and forth with them with, 12 minutes to go. But still, I think it really highlights the lack of depth this team has. And look, we've seen good things out of Arden Conyers. We've seen good things out of Ugasuk these past couple games. They just don't have the bench capable of making up what they need to make up with that many guys not being on the court.
Yeah, no, with Jamari Thomas and Miles Studi being down, look, you were able to kind of get through the first 2 games without them both against Auburn and Vanderbilt. But, after that, you're starting to see the holes in this whole thing kind of come to life. And there's a lot of issues right now. I think the guard play has kind of been wishy-washy at best. Morris Ugasuk has been playing pretty good, honestly, and he's probably your best guard right now. But other than that, you're getting basically no production. Maybe Jacoby Wright, but outside of that, Zach Davis has done nothing. Arden Conyers had 6 points on Saturday. Austin Hero got in the game for 3 minutes, and that was it. Did nothing. So you're not getting much from these guys. And then you're coming off the bench for the big men. You got Jordan Butler and BBV, and I don't know if that inspires a ton of confidence considering Jordan Butler barely plays and BBV sees 12 minutes, but he's not going out there and scoring 10 points a game or anything like that. So you're lacking a lot of production, honestly, and you're right. I don't think they have the depth to go out there and withstand foul trouble. That's something this team can't afford to get into because it feels like almost every game someone's getting into foul trouble, and when it happens to be your best player, almost, I don't know how much percent of the time, but it feels like a lot with Kyle Murray-Boyle racking up the fouls. That becomes a big problem and something that you really can't afford with losing him.
Well, and now they're still searching for their first win in conference play as we are approaching the end of the month of January, which is certainly, again, not a good thing. Here's Coach Paris after the game talking about still chasing that first conference win.
No, it just is what it is. We're sitting here with these two starters down, and you have, I think in both of those games, you have a lead under a minute or around a minute in this game and in the Vanderbilt game, or a great opportunity to take the lead with the ball, and so you don't make it happen. So that's unfortunate that we haven't been able to. But the guys have to continue to stay positive because. Right. You watch Vandy beat Tennessee today. I didn't know that until you just told me. But you see Vandy beats Tennessee. Well, you should have won the game. You had 26 turnovers. You definitely should have won the game. So who's to say you can't beat anyone? Sure. We gotta continue just to play.
And that's the message that you have to have. You don't want them to certainly give up on the season, but as we have unfortunately talked about leading these last couple games, if you don't win them, then your hopes of making the tournament or making any kind of run in the SEC are effectively over. And Jim brought up a really good point this morning. I don't know any tournament that's looking at this team. I don't know if you're even going to be good enough to make the NIT or the CBI, at this point, if you go on any kind of short little run. I hate to say that it's a lost year, but it's starting to feel that way.
Yeah, you don't want to lose hope on this team just yet. I feel like through 5 games in conference play, but man, this team isn't really inspiring much hope to feel like, oh yeah, they're gonna get it. Like if they were getting close to getting the win, they wouldn't have gotten blown out on Saturday. That's the problem. You went backwards. You have this big, insane amount of turnovers against Vanderbilt that kind of cost you the game. Then you lost by 20 to Oklahoma. That's where. And the schedule continues to get tougher from here, Tyler. You play Florida on Wednesday, Mississippi State, Georgia, A&M, Kentucky, Ole Miss, Florida. You know what all those teams have in common? They're ranked inside the top 40 in KenPom. Those teams are all really good. Your next winnable game, I feel like for sure, is going to be against LSU. But then again, that's a month from now and on the road. So, look, South Carolina has got their work cut out for them. You really got to start getting some wins here. But as we know at this point, it's very much easier said than done. And, hopefully being at home this week will help them out. But, yeah, I just don't see the tournament on the horizon for this team. The best I think this team's going to get right now is, having a shot to go for it in the SEC tournament. But I don't know. It's a long way to go from here.
Yeah, again, I hate to be having these conversations in the middle of January, but that's where we're at with the team sitting at 0-5 in conference play as of right now. And like Jack said, tomorrow night's game against Florida, 7 o'clock tip, pregame coverage starting at 6:30 here on the game in Columbia, as well as 100.43 the game in Myrtle Beach. We'll get into last night's national championship game. Ohio State adding another trophy to the case. Notre Dame coming up just short in their pursuit of getting back to national championship glory once again. We'll hit that coming up next. It is the Extra Point. Tyler Head and Jack Beltry on your Tuesday here on the game. Tyler Ed here, once again telling you about our friends over at Canty Foundation Specialist. I tell you about it all the time, but I'll remind you once more. You always need to be on the lookout for things happening around your home, especially if you notice things that are a little bit odd. Things like cracks in your exterior brick, cracks in walls or above windows and door frames, doors or windows that might be sticking, uneven or bouncy floors, or cracks over your garage door. If you notice any of these problems with your home, you could have serious foundation issues. That's where our friends at Canty Foundation Specialists come in. Go online to schedule an appointment today at cantycanfixit.com. They'll send a professional to your home to evaluate your foundation needs and get them fixed right so you and your family can live comfortably going forward. Again, go online to schedule an appointment today at cantycanfixit.com for our friends at Canty Foundation Specialists.
Toughest postseason climb in the history of the sport. And after all that, it's Ohio State together at the mountaintop, champions of college football.
Welcome back in. It is the Extra Point. Tyler Head and Jack Feltry along with you here on your Tuesday on the Game. That was the call last night. Chris Fowler on ESPN, as Ohio State did indeed claim the first 12-team college football playoff national championship with a 23 win over Notre Dame. And Jack, I won't lie to you, this game was 31-7 in the third quarter, and I thought we were all going to be able to go to bed a little bit early. I give Notre Dame credit. They did make it interesting, but I never doubted Ohio State's ability to win this game.
Yeah, it really felt like for most of the night, this game was never that close. And even when it got down to being a 31-23 game before Ohio State got the field goal to kind of seal the deal, it still felt like, okay, like Notre Dame's still down by 8. They got a long way to go here in this game. And, credit to the Irish. They really did fight back in the second half when they were definitely out of it for sure. I mean, 31-7 at one point, that's a tough hill to get out of. But, they fought back. But, again, Ohio State did Ohio State things. And that third down play, that pass from Will Howard to Jeremiah Smith to kind of seal it for sure and get that first down, I mean, that was probably the best throw of the night without question, and easily the best play, I think, in general from that game for Ohio State outside of everything else that they did.
Yeah, it's one of those situations like we need a big play. Well, guess what? You're going to put the ball in your best player's hands. There's no doubt. Jeremiah Smith is the best player on that offense, and he got that 56-yard completion down to the 10 that effectively sealed that game. And here's the thing. I know they had the one drive where Emeka Egbuka fumbled, and then they proceeded to punt right after that. They were unstoppable other than that. They scored on every other drive in this game, and I think it was such an interesting counterpoint at the beginning of the game because Notre Dame drives down the field. They have this long 18-play, 75, very clear how efficient Ohio State's offense was going to be as we expected, and they just kept throwing punches. And again, out after that first drive, Notre Dame didn't have a successful first down until halfway through the third quarter.
Yeah, I'm downs in this game, and had 100 yards on the ground. That's what you signed up for when you got him from Ole Miss. That is the player that you definitely wanted, and it makes you think, like, if Ole Miss had a guy like that, wonder how the season would have shook out for them. But instead, I thought he should have won the MVP honors from the game last night, but I think they gave it to Will Howard instead. So look, without Judkins, I don't know if Ohio State wins this game by as much or hangs on, but hey, all around good effort for that offense, and just shows how good they were in year one under Chip Kelly.
And that's my thing for this Ohio State team is we always knew they were capable of playing this way. But of course, lost to Michigan, turned a lot of people off on them. But man, really through the entire playoffs, these 4 games they've played, I've never really had any doubts for them because they dominated against Tennessee, dominated against Oregon. And I know Texas was driving late in that game in the Cotton Bowl, but I never doubted Ohio State's ability to win, nor did I last night. Like, this was truly a complete and dominant playoff run.
Once they got going with that big win over Tennessee, it was like, okay, the doubt about Ryan Day for the moment is kind of, put to the wayside. Now Ohio State's got a little bit of momentum. They've got the Michigan loss, the bad taste out of their mouth for sure. Beating up on another opponent at home, get to do that, and you get your offense going finally. And from there, it just really clicked for them. Like, they walloped Oregon in that first half to really, come away with the victory. And then after that, you play a tough Texas team, but again, it's your defense making the big play at the end of the game. And then yesterday, it was kind of an all-around good effort. Like, I thought after that first drive where Notre Dame took up almost 10 minutes of clock time to open the game, I thought Ohio State's defense really locked in after that and forced a lot of 3-and-outs, a lot of getting off the field quick to give the ball back to the offense. The offense went down the field and scored. So it was an all-around really good game for the Buckeyes yesterday. And, they definitely deserve to win it all. I mean, look, this is their first title since 2014, and ironically enough, they're the first team to win in the 12-team format now, just like they did in the inaugural season of the CFP back in 14.
And that is a good point that you bring up is, I brought this up to Preston earlier where, they, in both instances in 2014 and now in 2024, 2025, Ohio State benefited from being in a format that they would not have been in the year prior. So in 2014, when the playoff was born and went from, 2 teams in the BCS to 4 teams, Ohio State got a chance to be a part of that because even though they lost earlier on that season, because of the expanded field, because there was a BCS in 2014, Alabama and Florida State would have played for the national championship, and Ohio State wouldn't have had a chance. This year, with 2 losses in the regular season and no trip to the Big Ten championship game, Ohio State would have never been in a 4-team playoff. So and maybe this is just coincidence, I don't know, but if we expand to 14 or 16, should I go ahead and put my money down they're going to win that year too? Because they just seem to find a way to benefit from whatever the new rules and new procedures are in college football this year. And credit to them, you may not like the way things are laid out, but you can't deny that they were the best team in this tournament.
Oh, yeah. I mean, look, once they got, like I said before, once they got that win over Tennessee, they really showed, like, okay, they're back to being the way we expect them to be. Like, they are that really high, potent offense that's going to score a lot of points, and the defense coming through and making big plays when you need them to. That's the Ohio State we all know. And look, to anyone that might think that this playoff format, it stinks or whatever, I think it's really good, to be honest. Like, it gives more teams an opportunity like this, and it creates for more intriguing matchups. Like, besides the first round of the playoff, I thought all the games were, really interesting for the most part. And then, look, Ohio State, they had to go the tough way to get here. I mean, they had to beat a really good Tennessee team. They took care of them pretty easily. They beat the number 1 team in the country pretty easily. And then they took care of Texas in Dallas. So, look, a really tough road to get to playing Notre Dame. And you played really solid football against them yesterday, and it showed.
Yeah, and look, tomorrow we'll probably dive a little bit into the specifics of this format, what might change, what we'd like to see change, and all that kind of stuff. But again, we knew going into the year this was perhaps the best roster, and they proved it in the last month and won the national championship. Won the national championship because of it. And by the way, did you know that Ryan Day is only 45 years old?
I knew he was young. He doesn't have a ton of gray hair, so it makes sense.
I think he uses a lot of just for men, which is why there's not a lot of gray hair. But that man looks like he's not slept in 4 years.
No, he definitely looks like he hasn't slept in forever. And that's probably about the same time since the last time he beat Michigan, so it makes sense.
Well, he is now a new national champion, youngest one since Urban Meyer did it with Florida back in 2008. We'll hear a little bit from Ryan Day coming up next, as well as talk about Notre Dame and their perspective on how this season ended up, even though they came up short of winning the national championship. It is the Extra Point. It's our Ed and Jack Beltry, along with you on your Tuesday here on The Game.
Hey, what's going on, guys? Are you tired of the freezing cold and ready for the Columbia heat to be back? Yeah, me too. I know I'm used to being from New York and, dealing with the cold and all that, but trust me, I still get very, very cold. So that's why you should go to AAA. Here's some great news. You can buy a new unit today, and there's no payments or interest for 12 months. To go along with that, you got pricing transparency with no hidden charges or fees. You get $1,500 buyback instant rebate, 15 years parts and labor transferable warranty. There's 0% interest for qualified buyers and guaranteed financing. So call AAA like I did. You can go and call them at 803-677-1500. Again, that's 803-677-1500. You can tell them that you heard about them on 107.5 The Game.
Welcome back in. Here's the extra point. It's all right, and Jack Belcher along with you on your Tuesday here on the game, breaking down last night's college football playoff national championship. Ohio State picking up the 34-23 win over the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. And, well, nobody did more heavy lifting last night than Ryan Day on the trophy podium after the game, lifting up that national championship trophy as he claims his first as a head coach, only at the age of 45, and, of course, the seventh in program history for the Ohio State Buckeyes. Here is Ryan Day last night after the game in the post-game presser talking about his team's journey to the championship.
That, God made it hard for a reason. And, you just never know what's in your path along the way. But this game can give you the highest of highs and the lowest of lows. It can take you to your knees some days as a player and as a coach. And I've been there before. And, for all those coaches or people who, are, on a journey to what they're looking to accomplish, if they're trying to achieve greatness, you're trying to become national champs in the most competitive environment there is in the entire world. I mean, there's nothing more competitive than college football, in my opinion. And it's going to be hard. And there's going to be things you'll learn along the way. But if you surround yourself with great people, you're resilient, and you believe in the guys around you, and you just keep fighting and keep putting one foot in front of the other, and you give yourself another chance. And that's really what it was. And you think, back we were in the stadium last time, and, I couldn't quite come to grips for a while with, why we just didn't quite finish that game against Georgia. But I understand now. It all makes sense. And here we are, and I couldn't feel better.
And, Jack, it's really interesting, the dynamic of Ryan Day. And, look, we've talked about him all season long. Like, Ohio State garners headlines no matter what they do. But, here's a guy that we were talking about 6 weeks ago saying, man, you just lost the Michigan game. You just lost a chance to go to the Big Ten championship game. You'll be in the playoff, but how far can you go? And, had they lost to Michigan and then gotten bounced by Tennessee in that first round at home, no less, we would have legitimately been having a serious conversation about Ryan Day's future at Ohio State. You probably saw the graphic last night on the broadcast. He's got the third best winning percentage in college football history in a minimum of 50 games coached, behind Newt Rockne and Walter Camp. And we legitimately could have been talking about this guy losing his job because the standard is so high at Ohio State. But finally, after all these years, he finally lived up to what they expected out of him by winning a national championship.
Yeah, a little bit more respect needs to probably be put on Ryan Day's name. I mean, look, he's been nothing but successful at Ohio State, honestly. And yes, he's lost to Michigan a few times now. And losing to them this year, I'm not saying that is like it probably honestly was the turning point in their season, honestly, just losing that game. But, yeah, look, you want to remember him for losing those games to Michigan, go ahead, sure. But it's the same deal with Jim Harbaugh when he was at Michigan, right? He couldn't beat Ohio State for the life of him. And then he finally started beating them times. Then he won a national championship last year. And it's the same deal with Ryan Day now, losing to Michigan a few times, and he's finally got a national championship in his second appearance, going to the national title game. And look, they got that. They Ohio State had the toughest route going here because you had to go through 3 really tough games to get to this point. And I know you blew out 2 of those opponents, but still, quality opponents are quality opponents. And Ohio State's the first to win in this 12-team format, and it's probably a nice relief for Ryan Day after everything that had transpired, at the end of the regular season.
And it's going to be interesting to see because, again, this seemed like a buy-in year for a lot of people. There were a lot of guys that came back, could have gone to the NFL. They obviously acquired a lot of talent out of the transfer portal. It was win it all or bust, it seemed like, for Ohio State. And, again, as those guys move on and go to the NFL and all that kind of stuff, what's their roster going to look like next year? They have the second best odds, according to ESPN, to win next year's national championship, which, again, I know we're a year away from that, but it's never too early to look at those kind of things just for conversation standpoint. But, again, if they can continue to recruit the way that they do, they can continue to bring in the portal talent that they do, if they continue to have the NIL resources that they do to back a really strong roster, they're not going away anytime soon. This is not going to be kind of like Michigan last year. I think a lot of people viewed the Michigan thing as like a one-year run, right? Because we knew as soon as Harbaugh left and all those seniors that they were probably going to come back down to earth, which they did. I don't think that's the case for Ohio State. I mean, they were already perennial national championship contenders, but now by winning it, I think they jumped to the short list of 2 to 3 teams every single season that should be expected to be in this game now.
No, yeah, Ohio State's not going anywhere. I mean, look, they have a top 5 recruiting class for 2025. I mean, look, they are going to be just fine moving forward. As long as they remain, the Ohio State that we all know. I mean, look, they got no choice but to be, one of the top teams in the country every season. And look, things start out tough right away with Texas coming into Ohio Stadium on August 30th. So that'll be a real big test against the team that you just played for a chance to go to the national title game just last week. So be really interesting. The schedule in the Big Ten is always tough. You have to go to the Big House next year. You got to go on the road to Washington and play teams like that at Illinois. I mean, look, the point is Ohio State should be fine next year, and they should be fine for the future. You're going to have Jeremiah Smith back for at least 2 more years. I know he made the comment yesterday that he wants to do this 3 more times and then quickly retracted that and said 2 times. So, look, you're going to have him for probably 2 more years, but he's not the only top player. You have so many other talented players on this team. And, yes, you're going to be losing a little bit of talent like Will Howard and Jack Sawyer, et cetera, et cetera. But you will be able to bring in so many more guys because who wouldn't want to go play at Ohio State?
Yeah, absolutely. And on the flip side of things, you have Marcus Freeman in Notre Dame. And I said this earlier, in years past, you can certainly poke holes in Notre Dame's ability to reach a championship game. They got blown out by Alabama, and you say, well, that Notre Dame team wasn't all that good to begin with, considering the quality of opponent that they faced, the times they made the playoffs before, got bounced pretty quickly. But in a 12-team playoff, it's no fluke reaching the national championship. You have to beat quality teams. Notre Dame did that against Georgia. They did that against Penn State last week. Like, they deserved to be there last night, and again, did enough to make it interesting in those last couple minutes. And I'm interested to see if Marcus Freeman can keep this momentum rolling. Because, again, we've seen plenty of coaches put together one good season, and he's still young, obviously, in year number 3 at Notre Dame. Is this the beginning of something? Like, are they really sparking a run of
defeated team and then got smoked out in Miami in 2012? And then you have all the college football playoff trips where they get there, but they still get beat pretty badly by Alabama's, Clemson's, et cetera. So this time around with Marcus Freeman as the head coach now, times have definitely changed for Notre Dame in a good way, and I do feel like they are heading in the right direction under him. Again, you mentioned it. It's a tough road to get here, and they had to do it the hard way as well. So a lot of credit needs to be given to Notre Dame. They stayed in this game despite being down by plenty at halftime, but they're definitely going in the right direction. As long as Freeman's still sticking around there, I know NFL teams are going to want him. Other colleges are going to want to go after him and stuff, but I feel like he's going to be sticking around in Notre Dame for the long haul, and he's definitely the right guy for the job out there.
Did you enjoy this game last night? Was it fun for you to watch?
Gonna be honest, man, not really. I love college football, man, as much as the next person, but to watch how bad Notre Dame was out of it at halftime, and then it just, again, like I said at the beginning of the show, I just feel like this game was never really close, even when it got down to being an 8-point game. But I will say the final minutes were kind of entertaining with Notre Dame fighting back and stuff. Again, it's just when it was a blowout at halftime, like, all right, well, hopefully this isn't getting any worse here.
Yeah, look, I kind of expected Ohio State to pull away late in the game, so the score kind of worked out in a way how I expected it to. I just didn't see the game flowing in that exact way. But, again, I never really had a doubt that Ohio State could win this game, which does take a little bit of fun out of it when you don't think the other team truly has a chance to win. It's just, and I've seen a lot of people complain about this, it's bizarre to be playing college football this late into January. I think that's just something we're not all quite used to just yet.
No, we'll get there eventually. But the one thing I think they got to do for sure, man, is just move this game to a Saturday. Move it to literally the day before the championship weekend in the NFL. Like the Saturday of championship weekend, just do it then. It's a few more extra days. Who really cares? This game needs to be on a Saturday moving forward.
Hey, I'm right there with you. I don't know if they're going to do it, but I'd certainly be in favor of it because in college football, it's Saturday sport, and the sport should be played on Saturday. We will come back, wrap up today's edition of the X Point, talk a little bit of NFL playoffs as it was an intriguing weekend in the 4 games that we saw setting up for this weekend's conference championship games. That's coming up next. It is the Extra Point. Tyler Head and Jack Beltry on your Tuesday on the Game. Welcome back in. It is the Extra Point. Tyler Head and Jack Beltry along with you here on your Tuesday, wrapping up a busy football weekend. That was a call on Fox Sports on Saturday night as the Commanders take a 45-31 victory over the number 1 seed in the NFC, and the Detroit Lions. And Jack, I know we're not supposed to be surprised by things in the NFL, especially in the playoffs, because the league is so tight when it comes to, parity. But, man, the Commanders walking in and picking up a 14-point win over the Lions, not something I saw coming.
No, definitely not. Not at all. I thought, this was a game that was very entertaining, honestly. It just kept going back and forth. But, man, that second quarter with Washington getting 28 points and Detroit scoring 14 stuff, this game just kept going back and forth, honestly. But, Washington was just, dominant when they needed to be. Man, that fourth quarter, getting those 14 points is huge. And you also did a really good job in defense. You forced 3 interceptions against Jared Goff, and I thought he, despite throwing for 300 yards and all that, I thought he was definitely off the mark a little bit in this game with some of those passes and stuff. Jahmyr Gibbs had a great game and all, but again, Jaden Daniels stepping up, throwing for nearly 300 yards and 2 touchdowns. No interceptions. Brian Robinson having a big game. Look, this is what you signed up for when you got Jaden Daniels in the draft, and he has lived up to just about every expectation you could have for a year one quarterback. And now you got a chance to play for going to the Super Bowl. You got to do it on the road in Philly, but I do like Washington's chances, to be honest.
Look, I'm a big fan of Jaden Daniels. He's so fun to watch. Again, he put the team on his back against Tampa Bay because they couldn't run the ball, and he had to throw them to that victory. This past weekend had a little bit more of a balanced attack, but made some big plays there, obviously, helping his team score. Well, they scored 38 of the points because there was one pick six mixed in there as well when it comes to defense. But, man, for a rookie to go on the road in his first 2 playoff starts and win, and, look, it's not going to be easy going into Lincoln taking on Philly, but, man, if they've accomplished this up to this point, there's nothing this team can't do, I feel like.
No, as long as he is under center and he's all good and out there, you always have a chance with Jaden Daniels under center. He's proven that he can go out here and win these big games on the road. Like, it was tough out in Tampa. You obviously needed to win with a field goal in the end. And then going to Detroit, the number 1 seed, the possible Super Bowl favorites, and you beat them by 2 touchdowns. That's very impressive, to say the least. And a lot of credit needs to be given to Dan Quinn, Cliff Kingsbury. They've got it rolling out there, out in Washington. And this is a really good team that, I think that they have the potential. If they add maybe a few more pieces to this thing they got going here, they could be one of those teams that's in the mix for the Super Bowl for years to come.
Yeah, definitely looking pretty strong there, and that was a big surprise for the weekend for a lot of people. But something that I think really shocked a lot of people is how things ended in Buffalo on Sunday night.
Gonna roll, flip it, got it. Oh, the ball was dropped. He had the 2-point conversion in his hands.
Mark Andrews dropping a would-be 2-point conversion that leaves the Ravens down 2 points, 27-25, to fall to the Bills as they fail to advance to the AFC Championship game. I actually have a question from the crowd. Preston wants me to ask Jack if his heart skipped a beat when Josh Allen looked as though he was going to attempt a lateral at the goal line that one time and then thought better of it.
Yeah. My heart definitely skipped a beat. Not just that play, but definitely a few times in this game. And look, when Mark Andrews, honestly, I'll go back to the drive before when the Bills were at the goal line and probably should have just gone QB sneak twice in a row with the tush push or whatever to get into the end zone, and they didn't. And they went for the field goal instead. I'm like, all right, you're up by 8. I have a feeling Baltimore's going to drive right down the field and score, and they did. And then Mark Andrews saves the day, dropping another pass. Well, this is his first drop of the game, but he had that fumble earlier. Look, without Mark Andrews, the Bills probably don't win this game. So big shout out to him. Look, he's been one of the most reliable tight ends in recent memory. But, on this day, the Bills were able to force a few turnovers on Lamar and Mark Andrews making some critical mistakes, and the Bills doing what they do and kind of letting the Ravens be the team that might have been more flashy with the big plays and stuff. But at the end of the day, the Bills made the plays that really mattered the most in this game and got away with a big victory.
Well, and that's the interesting thing about this entire weekend of the divisional round is every losing team outgained the winning team. And in 3 of the 4 games, the losing team committed a high amount of turnovers, obviously 5 by the Lions on Saturday night, and then 3 very uncharacteristic ones by the Ravens on Sunday for a team that hadn't turned the ball over a lot this season. Lamar throws a bad interception, fumbles once in midfield, and then Mark Andrews gets the ball chopped out, and Buffalo gets 10 points off of that. And again, I think it says a lot how good the Ravens are, that despite 3 costly turnovers, it was still a 2-point game with a chance to tie it there with the last minute and a half to go. But again, when you're going up against a team like Buffalo, if you give them anything, even on their not overall best day, they're going to take advantage of it.
No, most definitely. I feel like in years past, we've seen the Bills be the team that the Ravens were in terms of, when they had like Stephon Diggs and stuff going out there doing all this explosive stuff, and then the other team would force a few mistakes by the Bills and come away with a victory. I feel like we saw the opposite of that on Sunday, and I think that's what is going to serve this team well when they go to Kansas City this weekend. Is you got to be able to force mistakes, by the Chiefs and stuff. But again, it always felt like even when the Ravens were coming back, it always still felt like the Bills' game to win. And you did a great job of forcing turnovers. You shut Derrick Henry down for the most part in this game. I know he had a touchdown, 84 yards, but I think the numbers, don't tell the whole story. And again, you made the key plays when it mattered and got away with a little bit. So big win out in Buffalo.
Well, now we get another edition of Josh Allen versus Patrick Mahomes, playoff edition. Allen has owned this rivalry in the regular season, including earlier on this year where they handed the Chiefs their only legitimate loss. I don't count what they did in the last week of the regular season, but now get another edition on Sunday and see if Josh Allen can finally get over the playoff Mahomes hump.
Yeah, it's going to be a really interesting game. I think this is the 4th time they met in the playoffs, and like you said, the Chiefs have always gotten the upper hand in this one, and 2 of those first 3 matchups came at Arrowhead. This one will be no different, and I think this game is going to be a really interesting one. It could be the best one that we've seen lately from these 2 teams.
We'll break it down as the week goes along. We'll get you back in here coming up tomorrow and talk a little bit more about what's happened this past weekend.
Yeah, man, I'm looking forward to it. I'll see you tomorrow.
All right, that'll do it for today's edition of The Extra Point. Coming up next in the Gamecock Club Hour, presented by Crant School and Heating, Jalen Kilgore from Gamecock Football sitting down with Chris Clark here on your Tuesday on The Game.